Good afternoon. The last video, I made the point that if we are to discover the true church, that is the church that Jesus founded, the best place to turn is the creed that we share in common with our fellow Christians. With them, we profess that Christ's church is one, holy, Catholic, and apostolic. My goal in the next several videos, the next 4 videos as a matter of fact, is to make the case that the Catholic Church best fits the definition of the one holy Catholic and apostolic church. And today I wanted to focus on the first of those marks, that is that Christ's church should be one. Now, obviously, the Catholic Church suffers from the same human divisions of Protestant churches, but we have a benefit that no other Protestant church, to the best of my knowledge, has, in that we have a unity of authority. The Catholic Church, as I'm sure most Protestants know, has a pope. That is, we not only have a hierarchy, but we have at the head of the bishops, the Bishop of Rome, who claims not only to be a successor of the apostles, but also a successor of Peter himself. Now, this is a unique situation, and if in fact the church is to be one, there really is no other way to achieve that unity of doctrine except through a unity of authority. I mean, if you're reaching authority by consensus, doctrine changes. It may vacillate from place to place, depending on the consensus of those involved. And you may have a disagreement in one place with what others believe in another place. You need a place where decisions can be final. Now, many Protestants will appeal to Scripture and say that ultimately Scripture is our final authority. I've always found that to be problematic because Protestants amongst themselves, let alone Catholic versus Protestant, have looked at Scripture and have interpreted it differently. Take, for example, the Catholic Church's famous belief in the real presence. We look at John chapter 6, where Christ says, "Unless you eat of my flesh and drink of my blood, you shall not have life within you." How are we to take that? Are we to take that we are truly called to eat of Christ's flesh and drink of his blood? Or is this some spiritual or symbolic thing? Who decides? How could we decide just looking on Scripture alone? Ultimately, we need an interpretation of Scripture, an application of Scripture. We know this simply because we see it in different interpretations of Scripture. We also know it from a logical perspective that when you have a written text, it's never clear enough that you can simply understand it without somebody definitively to offer an interpretation. Sola Scriptura has always seemed to me to be flawed. If, in fact, Christ's church is to be one, we need a church with an authority somewhere and a place and a person in whom the power resides to reach an ultimate decision. Now, not only does this make sense logically, but when we look at the evidence that Christ gave us in his words, in his actions, we see Matthew 16. Again, "You are Peter, and upon this rock I found my church." In the early church, you see Peter taking on a leadership role. It's true that the apostles work together to make decisions, but when you look at Acts, you see that Peter's always involved in a major way. When it comes time to choose a replacement for Judas at the beginning of Acts, it's Peter who says it is not right that there should be 11, there should be 12. And this moves the apostles to action. At the Council of Jerusalem, ultimately, it's Peter who moves things in the direction that they move. Not by himself, always in consultation, but it's clear not only that the apostles are an authority, but there is a headship to the apostles as well. This is necessary if indeed the church that is Christ's church will ever truly be one. That's it for today. God bless.